Hello and welcome back to another episode of Tech Champions. I'm your host, Daniel Beaty, CTO with Auditmacs based here in Jacksonville, Florida. As you know, we take time each week to sit down with thought leaders and subject matter experts in the field of technology. We love to get their take on the industry trends and hear more about their journey and their mission. We always have phenomenal guests, and today's no exception. Joining us from Atlanta, Georgia is Julie Fry. Julie, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Happy to have you on. I think we need to start with the most important question, which is, are your Chick-fil-A's open back up yet in Atlanta?
I don't think so. Well, you can do drive-through, and I think the efficiency of the drive-through people at Chick-fil-A are some of the best, and I think a lot of other companies could learn from them.
There you go. Yeah, we went through one over the weekend, and it was pretty amazing, actually, the setup that they had. So, yeah, we've got a lot to talk through. So let's just kind of dive in. I would love to hear, though, a little bit more about your history. I see you've got an MBA, PMP, and lots of other fancy acronyms after your name. So start by telling us a little bit more about your journey to this point and kind of what your current mission is.
Yeah, so I actually am a Georgia Tech graduate, so go Jackets. I have my undergraduate from them, and then I do have my MBA from Georgia Tech as well. And I've sort of taken a really neat trajectory in my career, starting in project management, even from the construction background, all the way now to the technology project management, and currently have kind of progressed the career into operations and strategy. And yes, getting a ton of certifications, whether it's the PMP or Six Sigma, multiple Scrum certifications, FinOps, product management, and it's just something that's really exciting to do, is to continue to learn and excel my career. And I guess my current mission is helping companies work smarter by looking at their operations and long-term strategies, by looking at what are their operational efficiencies that can happen. How do you develop and drive transformations? How can I help them with innovative cost saving solutions? And how can I help maybe with their cloud management? And obviously I'm open to consulting, but if a company ever wants to take me off the market full time, I'm also happy to look at those types of career endeavors.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. And the cloud management piece is something I want to dive into a little bit with you. I was just reading a study last week that said 84% of computing workloads will be in the cloud, either public or private, by the end of this year. So talk for a minute about why companies are moving so quickly towards the cloud right now.
Yes, and you brought up a great point. And I'll tell you, Gartner did a study last year in 2019, and they're actually projecting about 355 billion dollars to be happening within the cloud spend in 2022, which is up from 196 billion in 2018. So there's obviously a ton of reasons why people are moving to the cloud, and it gives a company greater flexibility. It helps with their agility. You're able to scale faster. You're able to get to the market much quicker. You can make faster business decisions. You can actually even have the conversation of CapEx and OpEx on if a company is wanting to have more OpEx or how they want to work on that financially speaking. And another cool aspect is looking at unit economics, where you're able to express your costs not as just dollars and cents, but more as dollars per unit of value.
Okay. So yeah, that sounds like, and there are obviously huge advantages to moving to the cloud. Along with that, though, are there any challenges that you see, and what would some of those be?
Yes, there's definitely challenges with moving to the cloud. And if you're a company that hasn't moved to the cloud yet, it's definitely things to think about while you're making that transition. And for those that are in that transition and already in the cloud, I'm sure people have seen how hard cost management is. A lot of companies, especially if they have clients and they're accessing them and they are maybe a SaaS platform, they might be worried, how is the security set up? So people want to talk about, the different systems and the different cloud providers that they're using for security. Internally, a company might feel like they're losing control or visibility, especially in the spend or how decisions are made. So that's one reason why I think, a practice called FinOps could be really great in implementing in a company.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about what FinOps is. I'm sure not all of our viewers are familiar with that term, and I had to Google it myself. So talk a little bit about what that term is and and what it means.
Yeah, so I'm sure many people have heard about DevOps. So this is another kind of play on words where
Sure.
you've got FinOps, and it's very new. It's probably in the last year or two as far as an official word that people are utilizing. It's been happening for many years before that, but it kind of helps bring financial accountability to the variable spend model of the cloud that people are seeing. And so FinOps is kind of an operating model that people can follow within their company. So what people have seen in the past is it's a cultural shift as well when you're moving to the cloud and utilizing that spend. You've got procurement that used to help solely with the purchases. Now you've got multiple employees within your company doing the purchasing for those different instances in the cloud. So FinOps uses all of this kind of information to bring all the different teams together, and they utilize an iterative flywheel cycle with three phases and stages called inform, optimize, and operate.
All right. So is it fair to say it's similar to the DevOps type program except for cloud management?
It's different in the fact that this is setting up basically the best practices and a kind of internal program within multiple areas of the company, where DevOps is much more centralized to that DevOps team and talking mostly just with technology folks, whether it's engineers or the product managers. Here in FinOps, you're going to be wanting to include your technology team, your business team, finance teams, and all of those people included in that.
Gotcha. Okay. And so talk for a minute about what type of company needs a FinOps program.
Any company that is currently, I think, in the cloud or thinking about moving anything to the cloud is definitely something that should be utilizing this. You might find it in a center of excellence in a company. You might find it under a chief operating officer. It kind of depends where those operations are going to be happening within that company, where you're able to make those decisions and have that centralized team. And that team can be either the people you're adding to your company, or you can actually find ways to utilize the current resources you have in maintaining that FinOps team. But it definitely is something that those types of companies should be looking at using.
Okay. And what groups or departments touch the FinOps programs?
Yeah, so there's three main ones that you definitely want to be thinking about, and this is what I would definitely want to go in there and talk to who is in charge of the technology area. Is it the CTO and CIO? Who's making those business decisions? Might be CEO or special teams underneath them, maybe the COO making those business decisions, and finance. So you definitely want to have the CFO included in those decisions. And so you're looking at the technology, business, and finance areas of a company. But what you also want to make sure you're doing is having the FinOps practitioners helping maintain that the general single team. And you want to make sure you're including all different types of resources in those three main teams. So anywhere from maybe a product management team to be included in these decisions, or even someone that's running your tax department, because this is a different way to look at cloud spend. So you definitely want to make sure you're including all different areas of the company and making sure that they're all talking together.
Gotcha. Okay. So now that we know a little more about FinOps, if a company wanted to start a FinOps program internally, talk to us about what some of those steps are. Like, what are the first steps they might want to take?
Yeah, so this is what I would do going right into the company. There's two that I would actually take that I think add a ton of value right up front. So the first one I would say is let's work on a common language. If you are new to the cloud, or if you've been in the cloud, people understand that are tons of new terms that people need to understand. And since we're trying to break those silos down, and you have the finance team trying to ask every day about cloud terms or some of the development terms, work on asking the finance team, hey, what do you want to know? What are these words that you keep hearing in these conversations? Let's define them for you, so we don't have to define them in meetings. And the same thing maybe with the finance team, asking, or the tech team asking about finance and saying, what in the world, where does the spend end up in the balance sheet? Where is this with, if you're looking at EBITDA, if the company is very interested in that, or, what are these terms? Where does what I spend affect you, and how does that affect the company overall? And working on that common glossary. And if your company already has a glossary, I would totally say go ahead and add it to that glossary. I know with some of my other companies that I've worked with, they've already had a glossary, and this is just an addition to it. The other thing is I would work on talking to, especially the executives, and saying, what are your motivations behind the cloud and what you want to do? Motivations can change throughout the years, even within one company. So this is why this is an iterative cycle. But you might have a CFO that says, I want cost savings, but the business says, I want to go speed to market and I want you to deploy as fast as possible to get this out. Well, if you're doing that, obviously cost is going to go up a little bit faster than you thought. So in order to include those conversations and having those motivations behind those teams, I think are really important to define upfront. So common language, make sure everybody's on the same page so you can work smarter in those meetings, and then also learn the motivations and make sure that they're communicated and continuously being communicated.
Yeah, that sounds great. I love it. We talk to customers all the time, each and every week, and a lot of them, as we mentioned, are moving to the cloud, and they're already there. They're trying to push everything there, but there's a lot of unknowns. I think sometimes IT as a silo can kind of simplify that process and say, "All right, we've got a
Yeah.
workload here. I'm just going to push it to the cloud, and it'll just be sitting somewhere else." And they're not always considering the cost and things like that. And we do see on occasion where people get that first bill from an AWS or another public or private cloud, and they're kind of taken back. So I love the concept of FinOps where you're bringing all those departments and groups together to get on the same page. So that's great. So
Yeah, I
yeah, I
think it's a
appreciate
great
it.
different new practice.
Yeah, it's great. So I do have one final question that we like to ask all of our interviewees, and that is, what is the one characteristic it takes to become a tech champion?
Uh, there are so many that I could say, but I'm going to say, if I can only pick one, I think being open to multiple perspectives is huge. And you've always got new ideas coming to the table. You've got new people graduating from college or somebody that's even been in the business for 50 years. And everybody's thinking about ways to innovate. And if you have all these different multiple perspectives coming together, I think it really helps drive that innovation even faster, especially in that technology world.
Cool. I like it. Well, thank you so much, Julie, for your insights today. Really enjoyed having you on the show. And one other thing, what's the best way for people to reach you if they wanted to learn more about you? Is this maybe LinkedIn, or is there a better way?
I do have a LinkedIn page, but I also have my own personal webpage that you can find me at, which is www.juliecaitlinfry.com, JuliekCaitlinFry.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn that same way.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julie. And thanks everyone else for joining. I'm your host, Daniel Beaty. We'll see you next time on Tech Champions.